Have you ever paused and asked yourself, how old is the world? Is it billions of years old, as science claims, or just thousands, as the Bible suggests? This might be the one question that connects faith, history, and the cosmos. This video uncovers some of the most fascinating mysteries hidden within the pages of Scripture. Did you know there's an ancient timeline that starts from Adam and Eve and stretches to today? A timeline that could rewrite how we think about human history. And what about those so-called lost centuries? Could they hold the missing pieces to humanity's story? Let's dive into questions that theologians, historians, and scientists have debated for centuries. What if time itself, how we measure it, how we understand it, might hold clues to a divine plan far beyond our comprehension? Are we living in the year 5,000, 785, 6,000? Or could it be closer to 1200, measured in what the Bible calls divine time? The answer could change everything. This isn't just about numbers or dates. It's about understanding how humanity fits into God's grand design. From Genesis to modern science, from Jewish calendars to Christian perspectives, the story of time is the story of us. Whether you're a person of faith, a history enthusiast, or simply curious about the mysteries of the universe, this video is your gateway to something much bigger. You'll learn how biblical genealogies help calculate the age of the world and how these sacred timelines connect to the most significant historical events in human history. You'll discover why Jewish and Christian calendars count differently and how this could change the way you think about history. You'll explore the concept of divine time, God's eternal perspective, and its profound implications for how we see our place in creation. Call to action. Before we begin, make sure to hit the subscribe button, like this video, and share it with someone who loves exploring life's greatest mysteries. Together, let's uncover a story that spans not just years, but eternity. Let's start at the beginning, the creation of the world. What do biblical texts reveal about the origins of time itself, and how does it all lead to today? You won't want to miss this. The very first dawn breaks over a world freshly formed, shaped by the hands of God Himself. The Bible begins with these powerful words, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." Genesis 1:1. From the first 6 days of creation to the seventh day of rest, this divine timeline forms the foundation of biblical history. But here's where the mystery deepens. The Bible introduces a system of years called Anno Mundi, Latin for Year of the World. This isn't just any timeline, it's a sacred count, beginning with Adam, the first human, and stretching across generations to Noah, Abraham, and beyond. Through genealogies, meticulously detailed in books like Genesis, Chronicles, and Luke, the Bible gives us a way to trace the age of the earth. Now here's the twist. Many biblical scholars believe these genealogies place the earth at approximately 6,000 years old, a mere blink of an eye compared to modern science's claim of billions. So, why such a stark contrast? What are we missing? To understand the biblical view of time, we need to dive into its genealogies. Take Genesis 5, for example, where the lineage from Adam to Noah is laid out with precise ages. When Adam had lived 130 years, he fathered a son in his own likeness, after his image, and named him Seth. Genesis 5. These detailed records allow theologians to calculate the years from creation to pivotal events such as the flood, which the Bible estimates occurred 1656 years after Adam. Then there's Genesis 11, which connects Noah to Abraham, the father of nations. Adding up these years reveals a sacred chronology that suggests the earth has existed for around 6,000 years. This view, known as young earth creationism, is central to many Christian beliefs. It aligns with the 6 days of creation, often interpreted symbolically as 6 millennia, reflecting 2 Peter 3:8. With the Lord a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. Now let's shift to a modern perspective. Science estimates the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, based on methods like radiometric dating and the study of geological layers. This timeline expands to a staggering 13.8 billion years when we consider the age of the universe. The gap between these views couldn't be wider. Here's a fascinating thought. Biblical creationists argue that their timeline isn't about geological formations or fossil records, but about God's relationship with humanity. The age of the earth isn't just a number, it's a reflection of divine purpose, measured through the generations of His people. So, if the Bible points to a 6,000-year-old earth, why does the Jewish calendar tell us it's the year 5785? Are we missing centuries in the count, or is there more to the story? The Jewish calendar, known as the Hebrew calendar, is another puzzle in this timeline. It begins, like Anno Mundi, with the creation of Adam, yet today it places us in the year 5785, not 6,000. How can this be? Scholars have debated potential gaps, forgotten centuries that may have been omitted over time. These missing years could explain the discrepancy, but they also raise questions about how we interpret sacred texts. And then there's the broader question: does this count reflect literal years, or is it symbolic? For example, some theologians argue that the days of creation in Genesis might represent long epochs, not 24-hour periods. This symbolic view could place the Earth's age closer to 1,200 years, blending divine time with human understanding. Do you believe the biblical age of 6,000 years? Does the Jewish count of 5,785 resonate with you? Or do you think the Earth is billions of years old, as science suggests? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective on this fascinating mystery. The Jewish calendar, a count from Adam to today. Let's step back to the very beginning. According to Jewish tradition, time as we know it began with Adam, the first human, created in the image of God. From that moment, the Jewish calendar began its count, year by year, generation by generation. Today, we find ourselves in the Jewish year 5785, marked by the ancient celebration of Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year. But what makes this timeline so intriguing? Rosh Hashanah isn't just a New Year's celebration, it's a sacred moment, a time to reflect on creation itself. It's a reminder of Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. For the Jewish people, this moment sets the rhythm of life and connects them to a divine story that spans millennia. Here's where it gets fascinating and controversial. What if there are centuries missing from this timeline? Could gaps in the count mean we're not truly in the year 5785? What happened to those lost years? And why does it matter? Scholars, both Jewish and Christian, have long debated the accuracy of this calendar. Some believe there are forgotten centuries, periods of time unaccounted for due to historical gaps or interpretive differences in ancient texts. For example, the Jewish calendar aligns its count with genealogies found in the Bible, particularly in Genesis 5 and 11. These genealogies meticulously list the lifespans of key figures, from Adam to Noah to Abraham. But some argue that discrepancies in these accounts, due to lost records or symbolic interpretations, may have led to a miscalculation. Christian scholars often point to additional historical markers, such as the reign of Nebuchadnezzar or the Roman Empire, to suggest that the Earth may be even older than the Jewish calendar indicates. So, where does that leave us? Are we really in the year 5785? Or has humanity forgotten key chapters of its own story? And what does this mean for the way we understand God's timeline for the world? The Jewish calendar gives us a deeply spiritual lens through which to view history. It anchors us to the stories of Adam, Abraham, and the covenant between God and His people. But what happens when we compare this timeline to Christian chronology? Does the Christian perspective align with this sacred count, or does it offer an entirely different view? Let's take a closer look at how the two faiths calculate time and what it reveals about our place in the grand story of creation. The Christian perspective, 6,000 years or more, biblical chronology and the mystery of 6,000 years. Centuries ago, theologians began piecing together the age of the world using the Bible as their guide. By tracing genealogies, like those in Genesis 5 and 11, scholars calculated the years from Adam to Abraham, from Abraham to Moses, and beyond. Their conclusion? The world, from its creation to the time of Jesus, spans roughly 4,000 years. Add another 2,000 years to today, and you arrive at the widely accepted Christian estimate of a 6,000-year-old Earth. Why 6,000 years? The answer lies in the creation story itself. Genesis 1 describes God creating the world in 6 days and resting on the seventh. Many theologians believe these 6 days symbolize 6 millennia of human history, with the seventh representing the eternal reign of God, a day of divine rest. But is 6,000 years all there is? Some scholars suggest the timeline may stretch further. In 1 Peter 3:8 we read, "With the Lord a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day." This passage opens the door to interpretations that extend the timeline, suggesting the days of creation could symbolize far longer periods. If each of God's days spans 1,000 years, some argue the total age of creation could be closer to 1,200 years. Here's where the story becomes even more profound. In the Bible, time isn't just measured in human terms. God operates on an entirely different plane, a divine timeline called kairos. Unlike our linear understanding of time, kairos refers to moments of eternal significance, where past, present, and future collide in God's divine purpose. The seventh day of creation, the day of God's rest, transcends human time altogether. It is eternal, symbolic of God's ultimate plan for humanity and the universe. Could this mean that the age of the world, as measured by human years, is just one piece of a much larger, more intricate puzzle? And if so, what does that mean for us today? What if time, as we know it, is only the surface? What if God's timeline is woven with purpose and meaning far beyond our understanding? The Bible holds clues, but are we interpreting them correctly? The debate doesn't end here. For centuries, Christians have wrestled with whether to interpret the Bible's timeline literally or symbolically. Literalists argue that the genealogies and numbers in the Bible provide an accurate historical account. For them, the 6,000-year timeline is a clear roadmap of humanity's journey from creation to now. Symbolists, on the other hand, see the timeline as rich in metaphor. The 6 days of creation may represent epochs or divine stages of development. The seventh day, the day of rest, is seen as God's eternal reign, a realm beyond earthly measurement. Both perspectives offer something profound. The literal view connects us directly to the roots of human history. The symbolic view challenges us to see beyond numbers into the spiritual depths of God's plan. Are the 6 days of creation literal days or symbolic of something far greater? Could the earth be just 6,000 years old, or is it part of a divine timeline that stretches into eternity? Your perspective matters. Share your thoughts in the comments below. As we continue this journey, let's dive even deeper into the concept of divine time. What does it reveal about God's purpose, and how does it reshape our understanding of history, faith, and the future? Stay with us, it only gets more fascinating from here. The concept of divine time. In the Bible, time takes on a meaning far greater than what we experience in our everyday lives. In Peter 3:8 it's written, "With the Lord a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day." This verse isn't just poetic. It unveils a profound truth about God's relationship with time. While we measure years, decades, and centuries, God's time, divine time, exists outside these limits. It's infinite, eternal, and transcendent. Think of the 6 days of creation described in Genesis. Are they literal 24-hour days? Or could they symbolize vast 1,000-year periods, each representing a divine phase in the unfolding story of the universe? This symbolic view not only deepens our understanding of Scripture, but also creates a bridge between faith and science. For example, the idea that creation days represent extended periods aligns with modern discoveries about the Earth's age. It doesn't conflict with faith. Instead, it shows us how divine mysteries can coexist with human understanding. The Bible uses symbolism to invite reflection and deeper insight. By interpreting creation days symbolically, we don't diminish their importance. We expand their meaning. The 6 days of creation can be seen as 6 phases of God's work, with each phase holding a specific purpose. The seventh day, the day of rest, transcends human time. It represents eternity, God's perfect completion of creation. This perspective lets us appreciate the richness of Scripture while engaging in meaningful dialogue with modern science. It's a way to understand that faith and reason are not opposites, but complementary tools for exploring the truth. But here's the big question. If divine time transcends human understanding, how do biblical events fit into history? Are there clues in the Bible that help us connect God's timeline to our own? Now that we've glimpsed the concept of divine time, let's see how it aligns with historical events recorded in the Bible. How does God's eternal timeline intersect with the rise and fall of nations, the lives of key figures, and the milestones of human history? The answers might surprise you. The grand narrative of biblical history. 1. Creation and the beginning of time. In the beginning, God spoke, and the universe was born. 6 days of creation unfolded, each filled with purpose and meaning, culminating in the creation of humanity. As Genesis 1:1 declares, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." But this was more than just the birth of the physical world. It was the start of a timeline that still shapes our understanding of history today. What happened next would change everything, setting humanity on a path marked by both grace and judgment. 2. The flood, a reset for the world. Fast forward to Noah's time, when humanity's wickedness grieved God. The Great Flood, described in Genesis 7, wasn't just a natural disaster, it was a divine reset. According to biblical chronology, this event occurred around 1656 years after creation. Anno Mundi. Imagine the devastation of a world washed clean, but also the hope of a new beginning. Noah's Ark became a vessel of salvation, pointing to God's enduring covenant with humanity. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. Genesis 9:11. From the ashes of the flood rose a new lineage, one that would lead to one of the most pivotal figures in history, Abraham. 3. Abraham, the father of nations. Abraham's story begins approximately 2,000 years after creation. Called by God to leave his homeland, he became the father of a chosen people. Through his lineage, the promises of God would unfold, shaping the destiny of nations. As Genesis 12:2 reveals, God promised him, "I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing." Abraham's faith laid the foundation for the people of Israel, but his story also set the stage for the coming of the Messiah, Jesus Christ. Abraham's descendants would face trials that would test their faith, leading to one of the most dramatic events in biblical history. 4. Exodus and the formation of a nation. The Israelites, Abraham's descendants, found themselves enslaved in Egypt for centuries. But, through Moses, God delivered them in a spectacular display of power. The parting of the Red Sea, the 10 Commandments, and the establishment of a covenant at Mount Sinai all marked a turning point in history. In the Exodus 14:21 captures this moment. Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. This wasn't just the story of a nation's freedom. It was the unfolding of God's plan for salvation. The Israelites would go on to establish a kingdom, but their journey was far from smooth. What came next was a cycle of triumph and tragedy. 5. Kings, exile, and prophecy fulfilled. The era of the kings began with Saul, followed by David, who united Israel and established Jerusalem as its capital. Solomon, his son, built the temple, a dwelling place for God's presence. But after Solomon, the kingdom split, leading to a period of instability. Foreign powers like Babylon and Persia loomed large, and the people faced exile. The Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar destroyed Jerusalem in 586 BC, fulfilling prophecies like those in Jeremiah 25:9. Despite this devastation, hope persisted. God used leaders like Cyrus of Persia to rebuild the temple and restore the exiles. Ezra 1 verses 102. But this wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning of something even greater. 6. The Roman Empire and the birth of the Messiah. By the time of Jesus' birth, the Roman Empire dominated the known world. This empire, vast and powerful, became the backdrop for the most significant event in history, the incarnation of God in human form. As Galatians 4:04 says, "But when the fullness of time had come, God sent forth his Son, born of a woman, born under the law." Jesus' life, death, and resurrection fulfilled prophecies and marked the culmination of centuries of divine preparation. His impact not only reshaped history, but also offered hope for all of humanity. From the creation of Adam to the birth of Christ, the Bible's timeline tells a story of grace, judgment, and redemption. But what about today? Linking the past to the present. The Bible's timeline is more than just history. It's a guide to understanding God's purpose for the world and our place within it. From ancient empires to modern faith, these events continue to shape how we see ourselves and our relationship with the divine. What do you think? Does this timeline align with your understanding of history? Could there be lost centuries or hidden truths we've yet to uncover? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Now, as we reflect on the past, let's bring this story into the present. What year are we really living in according to the Bible, and how does that affect the way we see the world today? Present day. What year are we in now? For thousands of years, humanity has tried to answer one fundamental question. How old is the world? The Jewish calendar places us in the year 5785, counting every year from the creation of Adam. Christians, interpreting biblical genealogies differently, suggest it's closer to 6,000 years. And then there's the concept of divine time, which stretches this timeline to as much as 1,200 years, a number tied to the symbolic meaning of a day in God's eyes. For the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. Chapter Peter 3:8. But wait. How do these ideas align with science, which estimates the Earth's age to be around 4.5 billion years? How can sacred scripture coexist with modern discovery, or are they destined to clash? Let's break this down, one perspective at a time, and see how these timelines fit or contradict each other. Jewish calendar, 5,785 years. The Jewish calendar begins with Rosh Hashanah, the celebration of the creation of Adam. From this point, Jewish tradition meticulously counts years, leading to the year 5785 today. But here's the twist. Scholars have debated whether the Jewish count might have missed certain historical periods, known as the forgotten centuries. Could key events have been left out over millennia? If so, does that mean the world is older than the Jewish calendar suggests? What if those missing years could unlock the true age of the world? Could history have been lost to time or deliberately hidden? Christian perspective. Till 6,000 years. Christians base their timeline on the genealogies found in Genesis, Matthew, and Luke. These scriptures provide a detailed lineage from Adam to Jesus, creating a chronology that places today roughly 6,000 years after creation. Yet Christian theology introduces another layer, symbolism. Many believe the 6 days of creation represent not literal days, but divine periods of time. The seventh day, the day of rest, could transcend earthly time entirely, aligning with God's eternal nature. Example, in Exodus 20:11, the scripture states, "For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day." Dine time. Possibly 1,200 years. Here's where things get even more profound. Some theologians argue that each day in the creation story represents 1,000 years. By this interpretation, the timeline doubles, suggesting the world might be closer to 1,200 years old, a mix of human history and divine symbolism. Could this dual timeline, the overlap of earthly years and divine days, reveal a deeper connection between God's plan and human history? Scientific perspective, billions of years. And then there's the scientific view. With radiometric dating and fossil records, science estimates Earth to be around 4.5 billion years old. The gap between billions and thousands seems impossible to bridge. But could the concept of divine time provide a common ground? Imagine if the symbolic nature of creation aligned with evolutionary processes. a narrative where scripture and science coexist rather than conflict. So where does that leave us? Are the Jewish 5,785 years and Christian 6,000 years symbolic markers rather than literal timelines? Do the forgotten centuries in Jewish chronology hint at a richer, more complex history than we've considered? Could the billions of years suggested by science align with the eternal, infinite timeline of God's creation? Transition to viewer engagement. What do you think? Could these timelines be pieces of a much larger puzzle? Or do you believe one perspective holds the absolute truth? Let us know in the comments below. We want to hear your thoughts. The age of the world isn't just about numbers. It's about understanding where we came from, where we are, and where we're headed. Whether you align with science, scripture, or a blend of both, the journey to unravel this mystery brings us closer to understanding the divine plan woven through time itself. As we reach the end of this journey, let's pause and reflect. The age of the world is more than just numbers. It's a gateway to deeper truths, a story woven with faith, history, and divine purpose. From the creation of Adam to today, we're all part of a timeline that stretches beyond comprehension, connecting us to something far greater. Think about it. Are we living in the year 5,785, 6,000, or somewhere in a divine 1-200-0-year timeline? Or perhaps you lean toward the scientific view of billions of years. Whatever your perspective, one thing is clear. Every theory, every question brings us closer to unraveling the mysteries of existence. But what do you believe? Does the concept of divine time resonate with you? How do you interpret the differences between the Jewish and Christian chronologies, or the gap between faith and science? Your voice matters, and we want to hear it. Don't stop here. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What's your take on the timeline of the world? Are you Team 6,000, Team Billions, or somewhere in between? And while you're at it, leave us a question. Maybe your curiosity will inspire our next video. Let's start a conversation that bridges faith, history, and curiosity. Who knows? You might just inspire someone else to look deeper. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Join our growing community of seekers and thinkers who aren't afraid to ask the big questions. Give this video a like if it sparked your curiosity, and share it with someone who loves exploring the mysteries of the world as much as you do. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. Your time, your thoughts, and your engagement mean the world to us. Remember, the journey doesn't end here. The age of the earth isn't just a question of years, it's a testament to the grand design of creation. Until next time, may God's wisdom guide your path, and may your questions lead you to answers that inspire. See you in the next video.